Yeah, I definitely would subscribe to these beliefs that buyers want to do more of their own research
Yeah.
before talking to a salesperson. And it's
Mhm.
really important to be on that short list when they're in
Yeah.
need of your product or services. I've seen, honestly,
100%.
stats about when someone decides that they need a certain category, what is
Yeah.
something like 80, 90% of the time they pick one of the first few brands that comes to mind. That's
Yes.
scary for a B2B marketer. And so I
Mm.
want our agency to be top of
Yeah.
mind when
Yeah.
that happens. And that inspired us to get into things like the podcast, just try to build the brand of the agency because I
Amazing.
definitely can see B2B buying behavior changing. That's my own behavior. I like to research more before I reach out and actually speak to
Yeah.
a salesperson.
You are listening to Full Funnel.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Full Funnel Podcast. I'm Rohit, your host and your guide to the ever evolving world of AI first marketing. And I've got my coffee in hand, and today we are tackling the channel that performance marketers love to hate, but might just be their biggest missed opportunity. What if I told you that TV advertising could deliver 5 times the ROI and measurable performance just like your digital channels could? So today you'll learn the all-inclusive TV model that's making this all possible and discover how AI is revolutionizing TV measurement and creative testing and get the research-first approach that's actually building both agency credibility and client results. So joining me is Elena Jasper, the CMO of Marketing Architects and the co-host of the Marketing Architects podcast. Elena, awesome to have you here. Please introduce yourself and tell our audience what is it that you do.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Elena Jasper. I run the marketing team at a television agency called Marketing Architects. And we also host a podcast, like you said, called the Marketing Architects Podcast. We love all things marketing effectiveness, TV advertising, of course, and excited to be here with you today.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that. So let's start with the elephant in the room. I've heard so many performance marketers say that, TV is dead or TV is for brand campaigns and not for performance. But, you folks like yourself are proving them wrong with actual real results. So could you tell us why do you believe that TV is, both the most important and probably the most misunderstood marketing channels for performance marketers?
Yeah, I obviously a huge fan of TV because I work at a television agency. However, we do work with performance marketers, and we actually started in direct response radio as an agency before we moved
Okay.
into TV. So we're very used to working with brands that need to hold their marketing channels to a clear result, clear performance. And I do think there's a misconception out there that television advertising is only for big brands and big budgets. And that's a myth that we're trying to bust with all inclusive TV. We work with a wide range of brands. We do work with everything from startups to multi billion-dollar public companies. And what TV does so well is it
Mm,
works in both the short and the long. And that's why I'm such a big fan of it as a marketing channel, because even with the same commercial, performance marketers can achieve those immediate sales impacts they're looking for.
yeah.
But the even greater thing about TV is the long term impact, the emotional connection, the signaling, those elements of brand building that are really important, especially as it's getting more competitive at the bottom of the funnel. AI is changing everything. If you're a brand that's just dependent on the last click, buying those paid search ads,
Yeah.
showing up when someone's ready to buy, that's going to become increasingly difficult. So I think more and more marketers are going to turn to TV. And there is this misconception that TV can't perform. It
Hmm.
can, but it does both. So I think if you're going to invest in TV, you have to be willing to measure it in both the short and the long, but it can definitely do the short very, very well.
Definitely, definitely. That's something that we're seeing a huge trend in our space as well. It's really fascinating. So how did perhaps can shed some light on how did marketing architects actually rebuild this whole traditional agency model to make kind of like TV work for the performance marketers who are typically used to seeing like results in real time, right?
Right. So first, I'd say the model, it's pretty straightforward. It's all inclusive. So when you work with us, our clients only pay for media. We pay for everything else they need to make TV work. That includes everything from brand strategy to pre-testing to production to attribution
Yeah.
modeling and more. We actually started
Awesome.
doing that in radio because we were launching campaigns and sometimes they wouldn't go perfectly out of the gate.
Hmm.
And we'd say, why don't you test a new creative message? let's try a different attribution model. And marketers weren't always willing to give it a second try. So we thought, what if we started investing in it? So it really just came from this model of a partnership. And we're usually in the red on our pilots. But if people stick with us and they scale with us, we have longer term relationships, and it creates this sort of skin in the game model with our clients. And it's really hard to get TV right. It's difficult. You have to get the right creative messages, the right CTA, and then TV can be very expensive. Another thing we've done as an agency is I consider us more of a technology company, really, than a traditional agency. We've built our own DSP or demand side platform, which can help us acquire linear television, connected television, and OTT. So that's like things like watching Peacock or Hulu on your iPhone, your computer. So we buy all different forms of TV. And we've built our own DSP. We named her Anika. She's pretty cool, and she's able to acquire TV media at rates that work for performance marketers. Because if you're just working with a traditional agency, if you're doing things like buying in the upfronts, buying in the scatter market, it is going to just become cost prohibitive to be in television. So I would say that's what's unique about us. It's the all-inclusive model, and then the technology that helps us acquire a powerful channel like TV for rates that work for performance marketers.
Amazing. That's pretty unique, I guess, in that model. But that approach like totally makes sense. It's obviously clearly working based on the results that you're seeing. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the numbers, because our audience loves some metrics. This all-inclusive model is like delivering 5x the average ROAS, which honestly puts like most digital channels to shame, right? Could you like break down how is it that you're achieving these results, and what's really different with your approach versus like traditional TV advertising?
Yeah, happy to. That stat refers to like an average across our client campaigns when they come to work with us. They are performance marketers. They do have a ROAS target they want to reach. And on average in our pilots, we're exceeding that.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from, again, this misconception that TV isn't going to work immediately for brands. It's extremely hard to measure and prove. I know we're going to talk more about that, but when you can measure it, you can prove it. We're able to have those immediate impacts. And I think that another misconception that a lot of performance marketers bring into TV has to do with targeting, and this belief that if I can reach the perfect customer at the perfect time, then they're going to convert. I'm going to be successful. And what we found with our clients in our campaigns is that everything works at zero. And when you're adding on all these targeting layers, you're increasing your cost. And it's only worth it if that ROI is worth it on the back end. And oftentimes, especially for TV, hyper targeting is very expensive. Third-party data is expensive. TV is different than digital. My TV is shared with my husband. My parents come over and watch it. My friends. You don't always know who you're targeting. It's often inaccurate.
Exactly.
It adds fees. So we strip a lot of that away for our clients. They're able to reach a broader audience. So I think that's also a big part of the reason why we're able to exceed performance targets.
Interesting. Yeah. But I'm quite curious about the skepticism in the market, I guess. Like, what's your measurement approach for really proving this incrementality to the performance marketers who are typically used to some of the more conventional attribution models and windows, right?
Our philosophy, I'd sum it up in a phrase, which is all models are wrong, some are useful. I believe it was George Box, a statistician, who said that. We believe that for television advertising, you can't rely on one single source of truth. And if someone's trying to sell you on one model that's going to solve it all for you, they're probably not being honest. So when a brand starts working with us, we do a lot of pre-planning to decide what's the mix of models that's going to help us understand how TV is working for your business. It depends a lot on the type of company, how big they are, what marketing they currently have running. So the models we run, it could range from things as simple as a spike analysis, where we're looking when a TV ad airs, who hits your website, and we're tracking them over time. It could be something as complex as MMM modeling for some clients that are larger. And we love incrementality testing. We do a lot of local tests for clients. We're doing things like synthetic control testing, where we can test a group of individuals using CTV, hold out another group that looks a lot like them, and compare the results. So those are ways that marketers can test does TV work, because often if you're running a national television campaign on linear TV, unless you can have a certain amount of spend, it's going to be really hard to measure the weight in market. I think that also keeps brands out of TV, because the pilots can become so expensive. It's not like digital. And so using things like CTV, we're able to do more incrementality tests, figure out what works. But again, I'd say multiple models is typically what we try to do. And then at the end of the campaign, we look and see, can we compare how everything worked? Because if you're relying on one single source of truth, that can be pretty dangerous for television.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this measurement piece is absolutely the most critical piece. And I think that the way that you guys have connected all these different models into your tech stack, I guess that you built is, I found that really interesting. It's more than what other agencies are doing for sure. So yeah, like most other agencies are pretty much just like white labeling existing platforms or just leveraging other platform, but you've actually invested in building this, proprietary tech, right? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about your platform, Anika, and perhaps how does it differ from off-the-shelf solutions or other DSPs?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So we built Annika back in 2018, and we've
Hmm.
built AI into her from the start. I know AI is a buzzword now, so I always like to say
Yeah.
that we've been saying it since 2018. We didn't just tack it on when this started to become popular. But yeah, we tried to use third-party solutions. Even when our agency entered CTV just a few years ago, we tried to work through third parties, but we found that often these third-party DSPs, just the fees that they charge, you end up paying so much more for the same inventory
Yeah,
that it
exactly.
makes it really hard for TV to work for performance marketers. So we ended up building Annika for linear television starting in 2018. In the last couple of years, we built CTV capabilities, now OTT capabilities into Annika. And so it's just easier for us. We're able to better work with our clients. We're able to acquire the inventory more efficiently, have more
Hmm.
direct supply path relationships, which become really important in connected
Right.
TV. And then
Yes.
for measurement, it's helpful too because it's so hard to measure linear TV impressions, connected TV impressions,
Hmm.
OTT. A lot of our clients invest in all of them, and there can be overlap. And it's really valuable to know what is the actual unique reach I'm receiving. They are working on more standardization for linear versus connected TV measurement,
Yeah.
but linear measures people based on impressions, and CTV tends to measure a household. So it's like
Yeah.
apples and oranges. So when we have it all on our own platform, we're able to, it's easier to measure each piece and
Right.
more efficient. And you're right, most agencies, they'll tell you we have our own platform. We've never encountered another agency that truly built it from the ground up. Most are white labeling
100%.
third
Yeah.
party solutions. So when you've built your own technology, you just have so much more freedom to adapt and I think produce something that's more custom fit for performance marketers.
Definitely, definitely. That's really smart. Having the control, I think, is critical in today's entire landscape that's changing so fast, right? You also mentioned that I think you have like a product for creative testing. I'm curious to see how AI is really transforming your approach to essentially like TVC development, right? Especially since creative testing has traditionally been very expensive and time consuming. Maybe you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm really excited about the work we've been doing with AI and pre-testing. We used more of a traditional TV pre-testing model.
Okay.
Um, a decade or so ago, we built something called ESP Now, and what we did was we would put concepts in the form of animatics up against panel audiences online, measure the results. And a big reason we adopted pre-testing was because it can be so risky to spend all this money on a TV spot and it goes on air and it doesn't
That's it.
work. So we're
Yeah.
actually able to build something that was predictive of in-market performance. And we proved that over the years with clients. That
Yeah.
helped us because we're investing in the TV commercial. So we want to make sure it works. We're putting all
Yeah.
this money into it. And then we can use that over time to beat creative and produce new creative. But it was time consuming and expensive. These online surveys, they're cheaper than a focus group, but they're still expensive. It takes a long time to produce animatics. What we were able
Exactly.
to do is using LLMs, we built a
Hmm.
new platform that we call ScriptSooth, where we're able
Okay.
to actually pre-test from the script level. So we don't even have to go to the
Right.
animatic level. We have our own formula for writing the scripts, putting them into ScriptSooth. You can essentially just test concept after concept after concept
Amazing.
immediately. It's a lot more efficient. We're able to move
Hmm.
faster, bring in new concepts quicker. And we were really surprised to see that these LLMs, these synthetic audiences, were
Yeah.
actually more predictive than people, like true people in surveys, which we weren't
Yeah.
really expecting. And I think people get very nervous about synthetic audiences, AI. Does it just create
Yeah.
things that are all the same? And I would say it'd be tough for me to advocate for it if we didn't have the historical data. But we can
Yeah.
prove that this works with in market TV performance. So that's what
Yeah.
gets me so excited about it. And just thinking, what
Awesome.
are all the other opportunities for synthetic audiences? And it can allow performance marketers, any marketer really, to start pre-testing. Now, we do have the historical data, but just synthetic audiences in general, I think there's something that marketers should be looking into.
That's amazing. I think that's like a super unique proposition, right? The ability to have that historical data and then test it against synthetic audiences. I guess it's all about just getting like good enough, close enough to what the truth could be rather than exactly what it is, right? And I think the creative piece is huge as well. I think the whole AI video generation space is like evolving so rapidly. I'm not sure if you've seen the latest VO3 models and stuff like that. It's crazy. I'm quite sure big budget TV commercial testing can also be done over time, I guess.
Yeah, it's totally disrupting things. We have a new system we're calling shootless creative, where
Okay.
for some clients we're working with pre-existing footage, working with some of these AI models, and we're able to turn out creative rapidly. So we've got some clients that are creating new spots for different holidays, and we can just do it a lot
Amazing.
faster. And I think it's also going to allow more brands to get onto TV. And yeah,
Yeah.
we're really excited about it as an agency.
Amazing.
So we're using both right now, both traditional production and sort of this shootless. It just sort of depends on the client.
Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, so you've essentially positioned marketing architects as like a research first, agency in this whole crowded agency landscape, right? How does this approach kind of drive, both the agency results as well as your own agency growth, right? Because um, marketing an agency is very different from marketing a product, right?
Yeah, it's funny. We sort of came into it naturally, which I think is a nice way for positioning to come to life.
Right.
We were working with some larger brands, I'd say maybe 10, 15 years ago, and started to see that our TV campaigns were driving both this short term performance and this long term performance. We were so focused on just direct response, DR performance to begin with. We weren't looking at any of the long term impacts, but we started to feel things and hear things from them. And that's when we
Hmm.
picked up The Long and the Short of It by Les Binet and Peter Field. And that
Yeah.
completely evolved our thinking. We started to realize TV is so great at marketing effectiveness, and that's supported by research. And when we started advertising the agency, trying to be a little bit more, we used to sort of pride ourselves in being under the radar and
Hmm.
unknown, but we started to want to have more of a presence. And I thought, well, why don't we start talking about these marketing effectiveness principles in this research? Because a lot of marketers, especially in the United States, aren't aware of this stuff. It's just how brands grow hasn't passed by their desk. And a lot of marketing teams are operating under just false principles. And it works for our agency because we do television advertising, marketing
Hmm.
effectiveness, marketing research. It loves TV because it works in the short and the long. So we stumbled
100%.
into it naturally. And then over time, I've become personally so passionate about it and trying to bring it to people in language we all can understand. And I
Hmm.
think people like Mark Ritson do a really good job of that. So many times I hear this research, I hear these academics speak, and they're academics. They're smart and they're speaking in their own language, but translating it for marketers so that we can apply it at our brands, albeit not perfectly. Not
Yeah.
everyone can just follow it word for word, and you probably shouldn't. So I've just become personally passionate about it. It
Yeah.
helps the agency grow. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited that I get to market something that I also like personally. Makes it a little more fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I guess yeah, you're as a CMO of an agency, and then obviously you have some unique challenges compared to what you do on the brand side. Um, and yeah, and you're a podcast host as well. Could you tell us a little bit about how you're seeing this whole, new B2B marketing playbook essentially?
Yeah, I definitely would subscribe to these beliefs that buyers want to do more of their own research before talking to a salesperson. And it's
Hmm.
really important to be on that short list when they're in
Yeah,
need of your product or services. I've seen
100%.
honestly scary stats about when someone decides that they need a certain category, what is
Yeah,
something like 80, 90% of the time they pick one of the first few brands that comes to mind. That's
yes.
scary for a B2B marketer. And so I want our agency to be top
Yeah,
of mind when
yeah,
that happens. And that inspired us to get into things like the podcast, just try to build the brand of the agency because I
amazing.
definitely can see B2B buying behavior changing. That's my own behavior. I like to research more before I reach out and actually speak to
Yeah,
a salesperson. So a lot of our content is around that strategy of can we increase our mental availability as an agency? Then can we do it in a format where they can get to know us and want to work with us because agency relationships are still very personal. They're working
yeah,
with our team. And I remember when we wanted to do the podcast, I just kept saying in my meetings with my team, I'm like, I know we're smart. I love our people. Like I would put us up against any other agency, but people don't know that. So what format could we use to get that out
exactly.
there? And a podcast became such a great thing because you get to really listen to someone and hear them authentically. And the
Yeah,
podcast has helped the agency grow a lot. it took a while. Like,
Yeah.
you're just starting your show. Like, we have to really stick with it. Like, I would say it took a year or two before we started to see really consistent results in, new business coming into the agency. But now it's just become something we love to do. It attracts new business. And I think the best thing is it's starting to help us find marketers who believe what we believe. And how much better is a client relationship when you believe the same things? So we're having people
Exactly.
come to us and say, you talk about these principles, I subscribe to them. It's like,
Yeah.
let's go. That's so much more fun than pulling teeth and just having differing belief systems. So I'm hopeful
Exactly.
that's going to help us keep finding,
Yeah.
marketing nerds out there who believe what we believe, and then we can make something special with TV together.
100%. That conversation just becomes so much easier when you have someone with the same beliefs. Yeah, I get what you mean there. Just looking into the future, I see that agencies are becoming like platforms like yourself, maybe, or maybe staying in the traditional service model. You've clearly chosen the tech route, route with your proprietary tools. How do you see the future of agencies evolving, right? For the agency leaders out there, what should they be thinking of?
Yeah, that's such a tough question because I would describe us now as, we are like a people agency. Like, we have
Hmm.
relationships with our clients, but tech drives everything we do. So we're sort of a hybrid between a full self-service platform, which we're seeing more and more of, and I think that model is going to keep becoming greater, versus a fully traditional agency. And as far as the future, I mean, if you ask Sam Altman, he'd say all agencies will be out of business in 10 years, or
Or
probably less.
Zuckerberg?
I said 10 to be generous, but he probably thinks it's going to happen faster. So we're
Yeah.
definitely preparing as an agency for that solution. We're trying to think about how do we build technology and process into what we do and protect it and make it proprietary and not get left behind. But
Yeah.
for now, for us, the relationship with the clients, having them trust our team, communicate with our team for something like television,
Hmm.
that's still very important. So what
Yeah.
I'm looking at is both where is the technology going, but then where's our audience and what do they want? Do they want to have personal relationships with us versus do they want to just log into a platform and do it all that way? There's probably room for both.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say agencies, it's one of those business models that you should be very aware of AI tools and starting to
Mhm.
think about even different paths
Awesome.
that your agency could take, because it's we're definitely in a category of marketing and then an agency business that's going to be is being disrupted and will continue to be disrupted by this stuff.
We don't know what the future will bring. There's path being generated already. No pun intended, but yeah, definitely, it is going to be a very different landscape in the near future, I feel. So that's great advice for the leaders or the agency leaders. But also, let's talk a little bit on the brand side. What advice would you have for like performance marketers who are considering adding TV to their media mix, but are worried, about the measurement and the accountability part of things?
Yeah, I would say that make sure you pick the right partner.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different ways to do TV. You can buy
Yeah.
it through self-serve platforms. You can start out smaller. We found that a lot of marketers test something like connected television because they can test less,
Mm-hmm.
but it often doesn't give them the results that they're looking for. I mean, TV's the greatest thing TV can do is truly impact your business. So we believe when you test it, you need enough weight and market to really have an impact. So I wouldn't test it halfway. If you're going to do TV, I would be trying to spend more than $1,000 a month to run TV advertising. You're just not going to see type of results you need. We want to work with clients, and I think brands should approach TV like it could be a huge business driver for them. But then I'd also say performance marketers, just in general, if they're starting to think about brand, it doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be limited to just television. I
Yeah.
actually think that every brand should be aware of the long term from the very start. You can do different things, even things like we're going to pick distinctive assets like our logo, our
Yeah.
color, we're going to have a mascot. We're going to stick to
Mm-hmm.
that. And we're going to be consistent over time. Or something like this is our core audience. We know they buy from us, but what if we expanded it a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Who are people that are influencers? What are some industries that we might not have considered before? So I think there are brand building principles that you
Mm-hmm.
can almost apply free of charge from the start at your company. But then definitely for TV, the right partner and making sure that you ask key questions about measurement, making sure there's multiple models running, because we also see results inflated a lot in television more than we'd like to. So I would be skeptical for sure of whatever measurement provider you partner with.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for that advice. So yeah, let's move to the lightning round. So quick, snappy answers. Um, yeah, what is the KPI you check before coffee?
Yeah, this one was hard because I'm not super obsessed with like those immediate metrics for like I like to look more long term, but I do always check LinkedIn and how my posts are doing, how the podcast is doing, because that helps me sort of see what's the market feeling like, what are people responding to. So I don't know if you count LinkedIn as a KPI, but I definitely am checking that
No,
every
that
day.
works because it's, you are a CMO at the end of the day. Yeah. And that's the new playbook. Yeah. What do you see as the biggest agency marketing challenge in 2025?
The biggest agency marketing
Yeah.
challenge?
Yeah.
Oh
Like
man.
marketing your agency, for example, what do you see it as the biggest challenge?
Oh, I mean, AI in general disruption could be one, but I think
Okay.
another might be just what we talked about before with this buyer journey no longer being traditional, going through a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
Build your own agency's brand. You do that for your
Yeah.
customers, and sometimes agencies neglect their own brand, their own positioning, how they stand out. So maybe I mean I don't want to tell everyone else to do a podcast because it's so great. Our competitors shouldn't do it, but do stuff to promote your agency and be top of mind and treat yourself more like one of your clients in building your brand and your awareness.
Awesome. And what's a favorite AI tool that is transforming your work today?
I love ChatGPT. ChatGPT
Okay.
is my best friend. I can't imagine my life without it. I use it 24. No, when ChatGPT is down, I like can't do my job anymore. So we use it for
We've come to that
running
point
studies
now.
for the agency. We use it for copywriting. We use it for our social posts. I use
Yeah.
it to prep for the podcast. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're not using ChatGPT, I know some companies don't allow it, and that's just so sad to me because
That's
I
yeah.
I love it.
It's amazing. Yeah. I'm like a multi LLM user as well. So I use some for different purposes as well.
That's
Uh,
great.
what's a marketing myth about TV marketing that you'd like to bury?
People think that linear television is no longer relevant. I even saw a story this morning about
Okay.
how in May it was the first month where connected TV overtook linear TV in viewership. And people say that like linear TV is dead. It's like people, it just overtook it. It's as big as connected TV. I think
Yeah.
marketers they overlook it. It can be a lot more efficient. You're still reaching huge audiences. And they've been saying it's dead for years and years and years. So that'd be the biggest myth is I love CTV too. I love OTT.
Yeah.
But if you're not considering linear TV at all, I think that's silly because your audience is there.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Okay, so that's a wrap for this edition of the Full Funnel podcast. Elena, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And huge thanks for demystifying TV advertising for performance marketers and sharing how you've built marketing architects into this, research first powerhouse. It's amazing to see how, you've managed to evolve the agency model. And so to everyone listening, if you're curious about how to make TV work in your performance marketing mix, hit follow and share this with a teammate who's ready to think beyond just digital only strategies. Definitely follow Elena on LinkedIn and check out the Marketing Architects podcast for more such insights. We'll be back next week with another guest. Until then, keep testing, keep measuring across every channel, and I'll catch you on the next full funnel. Thank you. Thanks, Elena.
Great. Thank you so much.